So Brazil just announced that they are opening their borders again for tourists. So what does this mean? Should you come to Brazil? Well, that is what I'm gonna try and answer. Welcome to the Brazilian Expat. So Brazil is currently the second most infected country in the world. That is right after the United States. And this trend, it keeps rising, unfortunately. Now this morning, Brazil officially announced that they will be reopening its borders for international travelers, tourists alike, to Brazil. And it looks like this is temporary, 30 days, and they might reconsider, shutting the borders down again. But you might wonder, with this rising trend, why are they opening its borders? Well, my guess is that the tourist industry here in Brazil, especially now coming into the high season, they're really suffering. There are mass layoffs, there are hotels who have done exceptionally well that are actually closing its doors, and I think they see no other choice than to open its borders. Opening its borders, does this mean for you as a tourist that it's safe to come here to Brazil? And that is what I'm going to try and explain, and and then you can make your own decision afterwards. But we'll start off by looking at what Brazil is actually doing at the moment, to mitigate the risk of infection. Now, if you go out in the streets in Brazil today, you will see that they are taking this very seriously. Most people here, they will be wearing masks. Actually, it's still mandatory to wear masks in public. If you go into any store, any supermarket, to a restaurant, to a bar, to wherever, everybody is required to wear a mask. They also have hand sanitizers everywhere, dispensers that you can wash your hands, and also they take their own personal hygiene very seriously. Everybody washes their hands, and so they take this very seriously. But the trend is still rising, unfortunately. So why is this? Well, what I've seen lately is that in the big cities, such as Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and so forth, it looks like it's somewhat getting better. It looks like the hospitals are their capacity is starting to increase a little bit. But what we see now is a lot of influx from the interior. And the interior of Brazil, it's for the people living outside the cities, it's another working class. It's like from the middle to the lower class. A lot of farmers and a lot of people without the health plans. That cannot go to the private hospitals. If they do get infected, they stand in line for hours, maybe days, in the public hospitals, which the capacity is already 100%. So I think also this contributes to the increase in cases, and but for the bigger cities, especially up here in the Northeast where I live, the biggest city closest to me right now is Fortaleza, and I have been talking to some doctors and some nurses, and they are saying that especially between the private hospitals, the capacity is now starting to increase. For you as a tourist, you should keep this in mind, that they are taking this very seriously. And they do practice social distancing here. And I think if you decide to come now and you take all these measures, you wear a mask in public. I mean, you go to the beach, of course you don't need to wear a mask. And also with the lack of tourism at the moment, a lot of these places, they're not overly crowded, so you will have a lot of space. So keeping this in mind, you should be relatively safe, in my humble opinion, to come to Brazil. It should not be a problem. Now, keeping that in mind, also, there is another factor that you need to really consider, and that is, sorry about the motorbike here. What you also need to consider is if you decide to come, if you decide to go to Brazil, then please do check your health insurance, or your travel insurance or whatever. Do they cover actually traveling to a high-risk country like Brazil at the moment? And it is extremely important that you have all of this in order, because if you come here and you do get infected, and should it be serious for some reason, but don't even think about the coronavirus, if you do have an accident here, in a car accident or some accident whatsoever, you get sick from the food or something like that, and you need to be hospitalized. Do you have a valid health plan or travel insurance that will cover this? Because coming into the private hospitals here in Brazil, the first thing they're going to ask you is for your health plan. Or if you're a foreigner, they're going to ask you, well, how are you going to pay for this? And of course, if you have means to pay for the hospitalization, okay, sure, but it can get expensive, yeah, if it's serious. So keep that in mind. That is, I think, is very important and to consider. Okay, so your health plan will cover it, and like I talked about, I think it's reasonably safe for you to come to Brazil at the moment, because like I said, they are taking this very seriously. So what other reasons are there for you to come and visit Brazil at the moment? Well, there are actually several very good reasons why you should come to Brazil right now. And let's start with the first one, and that is the financing, the economics, because as of right now, the local currency is suffering a lot. Now, you can look, I'm going to put up here on the screen. Now, this here is the Brazilian real against the US dollar, the last year. And it has dropped, significantly. So it's not only the US dollar, it's also the euro. So I will put the euro also up here so you can see. So you will see the Brazilian real is very, very weak at the moment. Of course, this has to do with the situation, the pandemic, the closure of the country, but it has also to do with there is some political instability in the country at the moment. I don't like to talk about politics. You can think whatever you want about our new president, Jair Bolsonaro, but anyways, it's sort of that Trump USA situation that's going on here in Brazil at the moment as well. The country is very divided in respect to the president and the handling of the pandemic. And it's not only the pandemic; it's they were suffering, economical wise as well prior to the pandemic. So this has only fueled the weakening of the local currency as well. So you will get a lot for your US dollar, you will get a lot for your euro, and it has also fallen somewhat against other currencies as well. So it's relatively cheap to go right now. So that is a currency, but also you need to keep in mind that when they do reopen the borders now, like I said, the tourist industry is really, really suffering at the moment. When you come here, you know, even if they open the borders, you know, you're not going to have a large influx of tourists straight away. This is like going to be a gradual, you know, progress over time that the tourists will gradually start returning. So if you come now, you know, there will be a huge competition for you as a tourist. You know, everybody here would like your business. And this means you will get really good deals on hotels, you know, on car rental, on you know, tour excursions, or you know, I've even seen good deals on plane tickets here within Brazil as well. So you take into account that you will get a really good deal and with a weak currency, you know, and it will be a very, very affordable trip. And if you already always dreamt of going to Brazil, or you had Brazil on your bucket list, you know, this is something you really, really should consider, because Brazil is a beautiful country. And keep in mind, Rio de Janeiro does not represent all of Brazil. You need to keep this in mind. Especially if, you know, you guys know that in the USA, you know, if you go to New York, okay, you see New York, it's a wonderful city, but you have all these other places, you know. New York, you can't compare New York to Miami. You can't compare Miami to Los Angeles. You can't compare Los Angeles to San Francisco. You know, there's so many. It's the same thing for Brazil as well. And where I'm located up in the Northeast, you know, is very different from down south to Rio de Janeiro. It's a beautiful place. We have miles and miles of pristine beaches, and you know, the locals are great. There's great food. You know, there's fantastic climate all year round. So it's a huge country, and it's a country well worth visiting. And like I said, now it's extremely affordable, and for that reason, you should consider going. So if we continue on, and there are other factors as well. I know a lot of you who come to Brazil, they have a lot of questions, such as, you know, crime and, you know, but talking about crime, it's also a very complex topic, and I want to really cover that in another topic. But just very short, you know, I've been living here in Brazil 15 years. I had actually never been robbed. But like I said, the common sense comes a very long way here. Keep in mind that the crime statistics here in Brazil, you know, 99% of them come from the drug cartels, or the different factions, you know, running around in the poorer slum areas or the favelas. So it's not like don't listen to the stories that as soon as you know, come out of the airport that you're gonna get robbed. This is not the case, and this is total nonsense. And Brazil is a relatively safe country. Just, you know, use common sense, and you won't have any issues here. So I think I covered most of the stuff here. If you have any other questions or any other concerns, if you're actually thinking about going, you know, feel free to leave a comment down below. Now, like I said also, I don't expect there to be a huge influx in tourists now that they open the borders, you know. I'm a hotel owner myself, and all of my business now is local, and I don't expect to have any foreigners this year, you know. But I do hope we'll see somebody coming along. But I don't expect to see any foreigners. But you should consider going. If, like I said, if your health plan will cover it, then you should consider going, and just take your precautions. And I think you will be absolutely fine. There won't be no issues at all. So I hope this was somewhat informative, and let me know what you think yourself in the comments below, and to all my Brazilian friends as well. Let me know what you think about Brazil reopening the borders, and I hope to see you again in the next video. So that's it for me. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time on the Brazilian Expat. Take care, be safe, bye bye.